Hey gang, what's up? Aaron right here, Canadian Loony Politics. Most of our videos are just information. This one's gonna blow your mind. Check this out. Chinese foreign interference in Canada is a real thing and it's an issue. No more head in the sand, guys. This has been testified in committee. We're gonna show that. Nobody seems to be paying close enough attention. Let this one knock your socks off. It's gonna blow you away. Let your MPs know that you're onto it and they should be paying much more attention to this issue. It's beautiful here in sunny Nova Scotia, though. No doubt about that. Let's get into the video. Here we go.
Oh, yeah. My insight and understanding of PRC foreign interference comes from 32 years of operations with the Canadian Security Intelligence Service, most of which was in what we called counterintelligence. I worked in CI against hostile states, both in the field and in headquarters, for a number of years. And this also includes what we refer to as state-driven foreign interference. When I started working, it was in the Cold War, and espionage was the all-consuming threat in the West and in Canada in particular. That was what we worked against various state actors. And there's been an evolution since about the implosion of the Soviet Union, where in fact espionage has become rather passé. It's high risk. It's very difficult to do against hard targets. You have to get people to commit treason. And it's a lot easier with foreign influence. And so what we've seen is, in the last 30 years, is that foreign interference has eclipsed classic espionage as a national security threat, both in terms of its scope and its speed. Why risk stealing another state's secrets when you can influence and manipulate the targeted country's policymakers? You can get close to what we consider the soft underbelly of a state through our democratic institutions. And the People's Republic of China, in this effort, are the A-team. They are the best at this. Their level of sophistication, confidence bordering on arrogance has made them probably the most daunting threat from a foreign intelligence perspective. So while China continues to play chess, Canada plays whack-a-mole. We need to raise our game. Now, there's been some talk recently that we don't have any legislative hammer to hit foreign interference with. There isn't legislation like with espionage and terrorism. So we know now this is an existential threat. What really has been done? What's been done since the allegations came out in November? Well, there's been the proposal for a foreign agent registry listing, which has merit. Well, unless I'm mistaken, there already is a bill in the Senate, there 237, which is a foreign agent registry bill that's been there since August. Why don't we just move it through the Senate, and why don't we just move it through the House of Commons instead of going across the country and having town halls to see what people think of it? I don't mean to be facetious, but I really think if the government wants to have a registry, and I know a lot of Canadians want to, we've already done some groundwork there. We're allocating millions of dollars to the RCMP, I learned last week, with no investigative strategy, no prosecution strategy. We're just saying, here, take this money and use this. 32 years in national security work. Every time we've had a crisis, every time we've had an incident, that's what the government's done. We'll throw money at the RCMP, we'll say, you folks have got to sort that out. And I don't think that's really an appropriate response. We haven't had a national security policy renewed since 2004. That's the first time we ever had a national security policy written. The threat landscape in this country has changed enormously in the last 20 years. Qualitatively, new threats with AI, all sorts of things, and I think Canadians deserve something like that, and it should be a national security policy that is China-centric. I don't mean to sound partisan. I don't mean to blame any particular government. I worked this threat with the PRC for many, many years. I actually was the national program manager 12, 13 years ago, and it was a different government at the time. And the reaction to foreign interference reporting, as I think has been suggested earlier, was no different than it was today. Nobody home. There really wasn't much of a response. And finally, I want to say I'm so delighted to be here to speak today, but particularly with Mr. Ho and Mr. Chu as panel members, and the other fellows as well, of course. But I think it's extremely important that we have Chinese Canadians to have a platform to talk about what's been going on. They need to have a voice, and not simply as some PR exercise to find out, what they think now and then. But these are the people that have been in the crosshairs of the People's Republic of China regime for 30, 40 years, and they're the people that need to come forward, and they need to have the trust and confidence that there's going to be outcomes and there's going to be a follow-up if they're going to take a risk and come forward and say what's happening. So I think not only the government, but I think Canadians, we need to listen to our Canadian Chinese community for once and hear what they have to say.
What did you think of that, guys?
Claim openly with evidence that CSIS has known about Chinese foreign interference in Canada for at least the last 30 years. Every federal governments, from Mr. Mulroney to Mr. Trudeau today, have been compromised by agents of the Communist China. Every governments were informed at one point or another. Every government chose to ignore CSIS warning. Every government were infiltrated by agent of influence acting on behalf of the Chinese government. Every government took decisions that are questionable about China and can only be explained by interference exercise from within. Every government let their decision process manipulated by two reasons: partisanship and agent of influence succeeding in controlling the message. Every prime ministers and or their staff chose to ignore the seriousness of the threat. Not only the sitting government has been compromised, but all political parties also have been compromised at one point or another. The inaction of the federal governments led to attack on many municipal and provincial governments. Ultimately, every government have been part of the problem, not part of the solution. And a reminder, not only China practice foreign interference. Again, we have evidence, names, circumstances when all this happened. A mandatory process where future election candidates must swear and sign a declaration that they are not under the influence or acting on behalf of a foreign government or entity. This form will clearly warn the possible criminal procedures in case of intentional deception. Similar process must be established for all political staff and volunteers during hiring process. Fourth, eliminate the possibilities for foreigners to vote for the selection of candidates and nominees. This is an obvious nonsense. Fifth, prohibit for a period of 3 to 5 years or all leaving cabinet members and senior public servants from working or participating to any activities or job related to their previous function.
Oh, yeah. Good morning, everyone, and thank you for this opportunity. I'm also honored to be amongst such a good raft of witnesses for you. And let me just say that I agree with everything that you've heard so far this morning. I think those are both excellent presentations, and I'm sure it will be the same from the other witnesses. I'm going to be very brief and basically just outline what is covered in my 2019 book, Claws of the Panda. Relations at the official level between Canada and the Chinese Communist Party began in China in the 1930s, over 80 years ago. What is remarkable is how little the attitudes towards the relationship and the objectives of both sides have changed over those 8 decades. In their early encounters with Chinese communist cadres, Canadian officials showed a fundamental naivety about the purposes of the party that continues to this day, despite all the evidence that they are delusional. But from the start, the Canadians saw the communists as a reformist rather than a revolutionary party. They nursed then, and many still do, the hope and expectation that the Canadian models of politics, administration, and law would be templates for reform that the Chinese Communist Party would follow. The Huawei affair, which started just as my book Claws of the Panda was being published, should have dispelled that blind optimism. It should have made it clear, beyond doubt, that we have no shared values with the Chinese Communist Party, and that we cannot have a normal relationship with a regime whose first instinct, when there is a problem, is to take hostages. The Chinese Communist Party's objectives in the relationship have been equally consistent. First was and is to make Canada a supporter of Beijing on the international stage where possible, and to minimize Ottawa's criticism if there is no support. Second was and is to gain access through Canadian universities and research institutes to Canadian and United States technology, especially technology with military uses. Third was and is to get unrestricted access to Canadian agricultural and natural resources. The Chinese Communist Party does not believe in market economics. Fourth was and is to have open access to Canada's market for Chinese manufactured goods. Fifth, And critically important, in my view, was and is to be able to control and use Canadians of Chinese heritage, especially those advocating for reform in China. By my count, the Chinese Communist Party has achieved all its objectives in Canada, while we have hardly had a shot on goal.
What?
So we're going to wrap it up right there, guys. My name's Aaron. This is Canadian Loony Politics. Politics in Canada are loony. I'm not the loony. The politics are. Like, share, subscribe. We've got more information coming. If you'd like to learn more about Chinese interference in Canada, let me know in the comments. I'll make more videos about it. I'll be watching this stuff anyways. I'm trying to inform myself. Like, share, subscribe. Aaron, Canadian Loony Politics. I'm trying to hit 30,000 subscribers. Smash that subscribe. Help me get there. And then the next goal will be 50. That is it. We're trying to inform Canadians as I learn. We're showing you what I'm learning about Canadian federal politics. Get yours right here.
What?
Oh, yeah.